today. So you will take, we're going to start, the first pose will be Adho Mukha Virasana, which is downward facing hero. There we go. So for downward facing hero, you would sit on your heels with your feet together or your big toes together. You would have your knees, you will have your knees hip distance apart so that you can bring a bolster or several blocks between your legs. One blanket will go for your head, and then one blanket will go between your heels and your butt if your butt comes away from your heels when you go forward. So the alternative way to do this, if you don't have a good bolster, would be to use blocks, in which case you would be taking a block for under your chest and a block for under your head, and still putting a blanket on top of that block so that the head is still slightly higher than the chest, if you've got the blocks. Now, the idea here is that you want the sternum bone to hit something and land on something, you want the butt to stay on the heels, and you want the head to land on something. The head should be slightly higher than the sternum bone. So you extend forward, you place the body. I'm going to use my bolster. And for me, my butt comes a little bit away from my heels, not much, so I can take a thin folded blanket, or you can take a thin folded towel if that's what you have available. The chest should go down onto the bolster or the block. The butt, top of the butt, extended back to press more weight into the heels, and the arms fully extend forward with straight elbows. So you will take your arms far enough out to the side so that you feel that you are not fighting against the bolster or the sides of the blanket or block, whatever's there. So the arms could go slightly out in somewhat of a V shape, but it shouldn't be very far. It should be to the minimum that your arms go out. If you're using a yoga mat, you should make sure that some of the fingers remain on the yoga mat. For me, my pinky or my index finger remains on the yoga mat. And your hands shouldn't be so wide that they're off the mat completely. Now press down into the thumb and the index finger side of the hand and turn the biceps and the forearms up. Make the inner line of the arm long. And that by making the inner line of the arm long, you press into the thumb and index finger and extend all the way up into the shoulder. And to make the line of the arm, the inner line of the arm, even longer, you turn the arm up. Externally rotate at the shoulder joint to turn the humerus bone, the upper arm bone up. Everything turns, and I'm using the word up right now as in up toward the ceiling. And your pressure in your hands should be down and somewhat away. And that away pressure, the pushing down and away, should help descend the buttock into the support. Heels or blanket, whatever's there. At the same time, you continue to take the upper back down. And now take your attention to your ribs. The ribs that run from the lower part of the back rib cage, the 12th rib, all the way up to the shoulder blades. And keep the chest moving down, so there is a downward action of the whole middle torso. But more than just moving the chest down, spread those about half dozen ribs away from each other, so that you're sliding the sternum bone on the support toward the hand side of the pose. But still, the buttocks stays down. So don't deceive yourself by thinking that if you're moving in some way or another that it's the correct motion. The buttocks should stay stationary and just spread the ribs. Slide the sternum bone forward by spreading the space between the lower half of the rib cage. And as you remain, there tends to be a gradually increasing sensation in the lower back. At first, it shouldn't be painful, but you can feel a spreading quality in the lower back and a spreading quality in the middle back. Still, the arms remain active, the elbows remain straight. And now come out by walking the hands toward the knees. Use the pressure of the hands down to help bring you up. And you'll remove any props from your mat, including the blankets, bolsters, everything. Take everything away and come onto your hands and knees. Prepare for the pose we call Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And we're going to include a lot of the same work from the previous pose into this pose. So have your index fingers parallel. Start off with your feet ready so that your toes are curled underneath. Knees are a little bit back, so they're not quite right under the hips. And now, with your hands, press the index finger, thumb side of each hand down into the floor. Turn the biceps forward so that the inner arm becomes longer. When you go up into the pose, the length from your outer shoulder to your pinky finger side of your hand tends to be longer than the length from the inner shoulder to the thumb side of the hand. And as you go into the pose, you want to attempt to equalize those two lengths. So pick your knees up, straighten the legs, and keep extending the inner line of the arm. It should be obvious to you that from your outer deltoid, kind of the outer armpit, to the pinky is longer than the inner shoulder to the thumb. Turn your arms up and see if you can make that inner arm as long as the outer arm. In order to do that, your elbow has to be straight and your arms have to turn from the inside out. Of course, in this pose, it's always instructed, or it's always understood, even if it's not instructed, that the knees should be straight, even if the heels are away from the ground. Now, take your attention back to that same band of the ribs, about the last 6 ribs. Spread them away from each other and press them down so that there's a strong downward cutting action of your back ribs as they spread away from each other. That should bring the chest closer to the floor, not by throwing the chest downward, but the extension through the ribs lowers the torso. And that all has to happen with straight elbows, straight knees, and that constant effort at getting your inner arm as long as your outer arm. And then gradually bend the knees, come down. I'm going to do a pose called Vajrasana, which is called Vajrasana. Vajra is lightning bolt or powerful. And you're going to take a blanket. You're going to have your knees together and your feet together. This is very similar to Virasana, hero's pose, except the knees and the feet are together, where normally in hero's pose, the feet are apart and you sit down between your feet. So you're going to take some support between your thighs and your calves. So I have a blanket ready. If you're challenged in the mobility of the knee joint, you may take a totally second blanket in addition to this one, but to place the first blanket, you want to get this blanket as close into the back of the knee joint as possible. So you lean forward, place your head on the floor, use the strength of the arms to drag the blanket into the back of the knee joint. And then you sit down onto your heels. If this is too much for you, you would use additional blankets. It would be better to just use additional blankets rather than try to sit on a block. So even if it's 1, 2 blankets, it could be as many as 3 additional blankets behind you. And I'm kind of showing that right now, that you would take several blankets like this and just keep adding. And it could be as many as 4 or 5 blankets, but you just keep adding blankets as needed. Then there should be some sensation of an opening in the knee joint, but it shouldn't be unbearable. give weight down into your heels. So your butt has to be on something. The reason that we've got it on a blanket here. It could feel like your butt sandwiches down into the heels, and the blanket is accessory, but the front part of the blanket here is used to help expand and open the knee joint. So for Urdhva Hastasana in this pose, once you're seated, square the chest forward, lift the chest, roll the shoulders back and down, extend the arms in front of you, the palms parallel to each other, and extend the arms up. Now, once again, seek to get the inner line of the arm as long as the outer line of the arm. It should be obvious to you that the distance from the kind of the back side of the body armpit, kind of the, if your arm was down, it would look like the wing next to you, that outer arm area. And the distance from that to your pinky finger is longer than your inner shoulder to your inner arm. So take the shoulder blades down the back and extend up through the thumb and index finger side of the hand. Press the shoulder blades forward. Don't arch the lumbar. Keep the top of the buttock pressing down into the seat of where it is on the heels or all those blankets, whatever's there. Lift the chest up. Lift up through the index and thumb side of the hand. Not to say that your pinky finger side of your hand collapses, but the intelligence should be more running through your inner arm extending up, and your outer arm will just follow along. And then slowly take the hands down, extend forward, come onto hands and knees, take the blanket out. We're going to do the pose Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, one more time. So come onto your hands or rather come onto your knees and your hands. Have the index fingers parallel to each other. And straighten the legs. Lift the knees away from the floor. As you come into the pose, glance at your feet. Make sure that your big toes, or rather your second toes, are parallel to each other. And then straighten the knee joints by pressing the inner knees back and pressing the thighs, shins, and front ankles all back. Go back to the hands. Press the inner hand down, extend through the inner arm. Make the inner arm longer and turn the biceps up, the inner forearm up. All those actions, all those rotations help get that inner arm to be longer. Put attention on the middle area, middle lower ribs, last ribs. Spread them away from each other. Press them down. Cut the back ribs forward as you press the front of the leg toward the back of the leg. And then walk the feet forward to the hands. Take the hands to the hips, point the elbows up, inhale to stand up. Now here, once you're standing in Tadasana, stand with your feet hips distance apart, your second toes parallel to each other. We're going to do Urdhva Baddha Angulyasana, upward bound finger pose. So start off checking your stance. Feet parallel, second toes parallel, feet hips width, and then interlace your fingers. Put the right index finger on top of the left index finger first. Have the thumbs touching as you turn the palms forward. Make sure that your thumb tips continue to touch. Now here, press the index finger side of the hand forward. And once again, extend that inner line of the arm. Without drawing the shoulders forward, the shoulder blades should continue to move back and down. So you keep the shoulder blades stationary, but from the inner arm, inner bicep, extend to the inner side of the hand. Tip your weight back into your heels and strongly take your buttocks down. lift the pelvis, or I should say drop the pelvis at the back, lift from the front of the pelvis through the abdomen to the chest, so that you're not engaging the lumbar at all. And then keep that extension of the inner arm, lead with the index finger side of the hand as you extend the arms up. Continue to take the top of the buttock down to the territory between the feet. Lift from the front of the pubis to the abdomen, to the chest. And now from your inner shoulder, extend up through your index finger. Release the arms forward and down. Put the other index finger on top. So now your left's on top of your right. You've changed the interlace. Turn the palms forward. Tip your weight back. Top of the buttock down. Lift from the hip flexors and front pubis through the abdomen, through the chest. So there's an ascending quality to the front of the body. There's a descending quality to the lower back, the back of the buttock. Your front thighs press back, back thighs spread out to the sides. Maintain that as you extend your arms overhead. This is not a back bend at all. It's a straight pose, so keep that lumbar neutral by taking the buttock down, top buttock down, and extend up. Now go back to that same area of the rib cage. We worked in a similar way on, what is it? I think, Wednesday's class. We worked in a pretty similar way, where we were moving into forward folds by extending the ribs and extending through the abdomen and the chest. That same area, the middle of the torso, the lower ribs on the back of the body, extend them once again here. Extend them away from each other. Use that extension to bring the index finger side of the hand higher. Just your arms go back, not your whole torso. So extend the arms back, pump the arms back as you extend up through the index finger. Make the inner arms longer. Then release the arms forward and down. So from here, stand in Tadasana. This time, classical foot position. Have your feet hips width apart. Join your feet, lift your kneecaps, extend your arms. And we're going to do two standing poses back to back. We're going to do Virabhadrasana 1, Virabhadrasana 2, and then Virabhadrasana 1. So bend the knees, bring the fingertips together, jump the feet out to the sides. And for the first time doing Vira 2, just take your hands to your hips, turn your feet to the right. Turn your left toes in, turn the right foot out 90. Make sure that your right heel lines up with the left arch. Now, once again here, take the top of the buttock down, lift from the front pubis through the abdomen and the chest, and focus on your ribs here. You will find in this pose that the natural tendency is that the right side of the ribs pull back and the left ribs pull forward. So turn your chest to the left, turn the pelvis to the left, and extend up through the sides of the body rather than shrinking the left side. So extend from the left hip up through the left ribs as the abdomen and chest turns to the left. Bend the right knee. Bend the right knee to 90. Keep the sides of the body ascending and the chest and pubis turning toward that back leg. To complete the pose here, now you'll extend the arms. Extend from the inner arm to the inner thumb. Bend the knee a little bit more to drop the outer buttock down. Lift the chest. And then to release the pose, straighten the right knee, take the hands to the hips, turn the feet, turn the left toes Out 90, the right toes turn in, align the left heel with the right arch. Hands on the hips, turn your abdomen, turn the chest, everything toward the back right leg. Now, I didn't say this on the previous side, but it should be something in your memory that you have, that this back leg always stays straight. Back knee, press the front of the thigh back, back leg stays straight. Then elongate through the sides of the torso. The natural tendency is that the ribs turn toward the bending leg, and the back leg, this would kind of be the natural tendency, is kind of this. So you correct that from the beginning. You put your consciousness in the sides of the body and the ribs, turn them to the right, extend up. Now bend the knee. Bend the left knee, keeping the sides of the body long, turning the abdomen and the chest toward the right leg. Now extend your arms by straightening the elbows and extending through the thumb side of the hand. Sit down deeper into the pose by taking the outer left hip down. Keep extending through the sides of the body as the abdomen and the pelvis turn to the right leg. And then come out, straighten the left knee, take the hands to the hips, turn the feet. We're going to move on to Warrior One here, Virabhadrasana 1. So turn your feet to the right this time. Turn your feet to the right, left toes in, right foot out, and then turn your right foot in even more. Now extend your arms out to the side, turn the palms up and extend the arms overhead. We're going to go to the full arm position from the very beginning here, or close to the full arm position. Now turn your abdomen and your chest around to face that right leg. Lift up through the sides of the body, especially those left ribs. Don't let the left ribs trail. Now extend the inner right knee forward to bend the knee. Sit down deeply into the pose. Keep extending up through the left rib. Turn the ribs, the left ribs forward, press them into the body. And once again, seek to move those left ribs in. So the back left ribs, right near the spine on the left side, move them forward toward the chest, toward the organs, and then extend up through the arms and get those left ribs to spread away from each other. And then straighten the right knee, keep the arms extended overhead, and turn the feet to the other side. Now turn the chest to the left. Right ribs now are your focus. Keep extending up through those right ribs. Bend the left knee by driving the inner knee forward. Sit down deeply into the pose. And go back to those right ribs now. Now it's the right ribs. Lift them up, cut them forward. So you should feel that those right ribs move into the spine, into the body, like the whole right side of the back is pressing forward. Extend up through the arms, not from the shoulders, but from the ribs. Turn the ribs to the left. Press the right ribs forward and around to the left. Cut those ribs in and extend up. Press back the rear heel, inhale to come up, turn the feet, and jump the feet back together. So I'm going to show something I'd like you to just watch, that when we cut the ribs forward, we don't actually want to lean forward, right? And this would be a way of cutting the ribs forward while leaning forward, right? So my whole torso goes forward like this. This would be incorrect because now there's a lot of strain in the lumbar. So we're going to do the pose again. We're going to focus a little bit more on the tailbone and lumbar spine. So jump your feet wide. Keep your hands on your hips and turn your feet to the right. With the feet turned to the right, turn the hips to the right. Straighten the left knee. And take the left side of the buttock, top left side of the buttock down. So you're moving this territory on your left hip. Take it down. Take the tailbone forward and lift from the abdomen to the chest. Don't lean forward toward the right leg at all. Lift up through the sides of the body, lift up through the front, lift up through the back. Take the tailbone forward, left buttock down. Now extend the arms out to the sides, turn the palms up. And when you bend your knee, don't throw your chest and your abdomen forward. Instead, focus on lifting up through your back ribs. The ribs will press forward to help extend the spine up. Bend the knee. Your whole focus is on making your spine longer. Don't even worry about the back bend quality of this pose. Take the tailbone down, left side of the buttock down. Lift up through the ribs. Now lean your head back, extend your neck back. Look at your hands, join your palms. You have to kick your head back to make room for your arms. Lock your elbows, look up, extend the ribs up. Now bend the elbows, take the hands down, look forward, straighten the right knee, put your hands on your hips, turn your feet to the left. First parallel, then out to the left. Change sides. Start with your hands on your hips, turn your hips and your chest around to face the left leg. Now here, I'm actually using my left hand. For me, it's my left. For you, it's your right. Use your right hand to push the flesh of the buttock on the right side down toward the floor under the leg. And that should help elongate the lumbar. Lift the front pubis and front pelvis up. Use the hand to help invite that tailbone to go forward, that buttock to go down. Now, I don't want to say take the chest down, but if you can see the screen, I don't want you to do this with your chest. So take the chest back, lean back, put weight into your back heel, take the tailbone down, and rather than extending the chest out over your left leg, lift the chest and the back ribs straight up. Chest and the back ribs straight up, tailbone down. And yes, the left hip flexor, for me, the left hip flexor, for you, the right hip flexor may feel the pose much more strongly as you do that. And then take the arms out to the side, turn the palms up. Without the help of your hands, you have to work overtime on getting that hip flexor to lift. And now keep the tailbone driving forward, bend the left knee, extend up through the sides of the body. Now lift the chest straight up. Don't throw the chest forward. Keep weight back in that rear heel. Keep the tailbone going back, or rather tailbone going forward. And then extend back, kick the head back, look up at the hands, join the palms, lock the elbows, look at the hands, lift the ribs up, lift the chest up. Lift everything in the upper body up. Don't throw it forward, don't lean it back at all. Go up with everything pretty much except the shoulder blades. Abdomen up, chest up, back ribs up, and then separate the hands, look forward again, take the hands down to the waist, straighten the left knee, turn the feet forward, and walk the feet back together. Stand in Tadasana. Extend the arms. And we're going to do downward facing dog once again. So walk the feet to the side, bend the knees, place the hands, index fingers parallel, walk the feet back. There should remain some intelligence in your back now from that last couple of poses. Extend through the sides of the ribs. So the sides of the ribs correlate to getting your outer arm to elongate more. Now, press the thumb side of the hand and look at your hands. Like you looked up in Warrior One, look at your hands. Press your thumb side of your hand down. Move your back ribs forward and spread them away from each other. Inner arm longer. And then release the head forward. Make your ribs back ribs, not front ribs spread, because front rib spreading is easy. That's easy to spread the front ribs. You just throw the body forward and the front ribs will spread. Can you make the back of the ribs spread? And then bend the knees and come down. So we are now going to set up for Salamba Shirshasana, supported headstand 1. For headstand, you've got a few options. One is to, like Amy, you said you've got that table kind of thing. I do have everyone muted right now, so sorry if I can't hear responses. So you could be using a special prop like that, or the 2 chairs at the wall, or the mat at the wall. And I would like to show you, and I'd like you to see what not to do. I'm going to demonstrate the wrong thing using the wall. So I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way here. I'm going to give you some instructions if you're using the wall. I put my knuckles to the wall. This is correct. But what is incorrect would be to be pressing your feet into the wall and pushing your buttock forward. So you can see now how I have like a banana shape in my back. I hope you can see. Yeah. So I don't want this because this is quite challenging on my lumbar. So if you're going to be working on pressing the tailbone forward, your feet have to be away from the wall. So if you rest your legs on the wall, don't worry about pressing the feet into the wall and getting the tailbone to move forward. Just focus on getting the feet to go higher and higher on the wall. Still, the tailbone will go forward, but your focus with your feet is extending up with the feet because now there's less of a banana shape. If you just push the feet into the wall and throw the buttock forward, now it becomes quite a lumbar. It's a big compression and strain in the lumbar. This isn't a problem if you're doing the freestanding version, because if you try to do that, you'll just fall. So your body, like your sense of balance, prevents that from happening, and it's easy to make that mistake at the wall. So place your hands, interlace your fingers. And if you're using one of the tables or the like Amy's table chair kind of setup thing, or the 2 chairs, that same feedback applies. If you're near the wall and your feet make it to the wall, the feet shouldn't press the wall back as if you were going to kick your heels through the wall behind you. Your heels should extend up and up. Inner heels, inner big toes, all those things extend up. So go ahead, if you haven't yet, go into the pose. Make sure that the outer wrists press down. Outer wrist press down, shoulder blades to lift. Extend from your inner groin to your inner heel, and extend the heels up and up, as if you were if you're on the wall, you're sliding them up the wall, seeing if the heels can go an inch higher. With that action of the heels going up, then you can focus on taking the tailbone forward. Might not be the best instruction. It might be better to think of it as the tailbone and the bottom also going up. like the back waistband, the back belt area going up. So I'm going to come out, but you stay as long as you can. I'm going to take a look at everybody here. So now everybody turn the thighs in, flex the outer edges of the feet toward the outer hips as you reach the heels up, back buttock up. So seek to get your lumbar longer. Good, and then if you haven't yet, go ahead and release downward, one leg at a time, or both legs come down simultaneously. I'm going to do a series of a few back bends. So I think it would be better to do the back bends first. The sequence that I have, and it's what's on the website, is our home practice sequences, list out doing twists, seated twists 4 times to each direction, which is good to do because it loosens the back and makes the back lighter during the back bends, but it can also be used to release the back after the back bends. So I think for time management's sake, because this is somewhat of a long sequence, we're going to move on to just doing the back bends. We'll go to the chair twist afterwards. So we're going to use the chair for the first back bends, and we're also going to be using the wall. So I'm going to place my chair close to a wall like this, the backrest of the chair closer to the wall than the seat part of the chair, and I have my chair close to the wall. Now the alternative to this, if you don't have a good folding chair to use for this, Nikki, you could try it with your chair. Like, I think if you can see how I'm setting mine up, I would just, this would not work in the chair that I have right now, but for yours, it may work going like this, sideways. You just have to be more careful coming in and out. And then a further alternative, if you don't have a folding chair at all, would be to take one bolster and one blanket and make a little bit of a mound on your mat with props. And I would still be placing a blanket under my head for this, maybe even 2, but I would be sitting with my butt off of the props and lying back over the props like this, and this acts to create a similar back arch as the chair would, and then you'll extend the legs. We're going to do some different arm things, but if you were using this setup, all the same arm things you would be doing all the same stuff. Okay, so now to get into the chair, be careful getting into the chair. Always be cautious with this. Take one leg through, sit down, then take the other foot through. No mat, no blanket is needed on the chair. So I sit with my buttocks right to the edge of the chair. My thighs are completely off of the chair. My feet are under my knees, and I have myself close enough to the wall where in a moment, I will be able to push away from the wall to straighten my legs, but I'll do that once I'm in the pose. So I lift my chest, I press down onto the chair. I slide slightly forward because I'm taller. Not everyone will need to do this. And I lift those back ribs into the body to lie back. And the chair should catch my back around the territory of the shoulder blades, bottom tips of the shoulder blades. I have my knees bent, feet flat on the floor for now. The first thing that would be good to do here is for everyone, all of you, lift your hips away from the chair, tuck your tailbone up toward the ceiling, and then with the tailbone tucking up and your hips off the chair. It doesn't need to be far off the chair, just an inch or two. Then lower the buttock back down. So you should feel when you lower down now, the lumbar spine is longer, there's less compression there, and that because of this little adjustment, you've kind of forced the tailbone to be pressed upward because of that adjustment. Now take your hands to the back bar of the chair. Now, Nikki, I know that you're using your chair kind of in an odd way, so you might not really be able to do this hand one because you would be pressing your hands into the backrest of the chair, whereas for you, one of your the backrest is like crouching your left or right shoulder, one of the two. So you may just have to make the best that you can with taking your hands around the chair and pressing down onto the seats of the chair. But if you're in a normal folding chair, you press down into the hands, or you press the hands into the backrest of the chair, and you push down into the hands to lift those ribs up and away from the chair, like you're getting lighter where the chair is hitting your back. And then straighten the legs, push the chair away. You may need to push the chair away slightly, and press your heels toward the wall. Your heels should land at the wall. And if your Achilles are especially short, then you might not get your heels totally to the wall. You get the heels as close to the wall as they'll go. Turn your toes in toward each other. You have your feet approximately hip distance apart with your knees straight and your thighs turning in. Now for a moment, if you have the chair, let's think about this. So Nikki, I'm not quite sure how you're gonna pull this one off with the chair going the wrong way, but you'll thread your arms through the front bar to hold the back bar, hold close to the bottom of the legs of the chair, and turn the biceps up. This is just for a brief moment. Turn your thighs in, lift your chest, expand those back ribs, and now take the hands out of the legs and extend the arms up toward the ceiling, and then extend the arms overhead. Do not concern yourself with getting your hands down onto the floor. Just make the body as long as possible. Stretch your abdomen, extend your arms. Reach your arms away from you. Now, your shoulders will elevate slightly here. That's almost unavoidable. But rather than just reaching your arms by elevating your shoulders, reach your arms by extending your ribs, extending your abdomen. Can you make the spinal column even longer? And not just the front of the spinal column, the back of the spinal column. Can you get those back ribs to expand away from each other? Extend the arms. And now to release, take your hands back to the chair. Bend up your knees, place your feet on the floor. Keep your head and your chest lifting up at the same rate as you inhale and come up. Scoot forward, rest your hands on your thighs, release your head forward. So for a moment, just let the head release. The neck might have been slightly compressed in the last poses, or at least the shape of the pose, the back of the neck in the last pose is shorter than the front of the neck. So just release the head forward to have a complementary action to that. Don't round your back too much here. We're not quite done with back bends yet. Just let the neck release for a moment. And now you're going to carefully come out of the chair the same way you came in. So slide back, take one leg out of the chair, place that foot on the ground, and then carefully keep your chair steady, step out with your other leg. And we're going to be doing Ustrasana, the camel pose. So go back to your mat if you've left your mat and open up one of your blankets to have a padding for under your knees and your shins. You're going to place that blanket down on your yoga mat. So I'm going to go at first the opposite way that I will eventually go and just show you the distancing. So I have my feet and my knees hip distance apart. And I'm actually going to do this pose the first time. This is the eventual pose as the knees are right under the hips, the feet are hip width apart. But we're going to do it the first time with the knees slightly wider. So the knees will be a little bit wider out than the width of the hips. And then the second time we'll walk the knees in. So I'm going to change to going this orientation now. Walk your knees out. Still have your feet in line with your knees though. The knees always in line. Knees and feet always in one line. Now take your hands to your hips. With your knees a little bit wider, you should feel here that it is a little bit trickier to get your outer foot down onto the floor. And yes, you have to work harder to get it to go down. It's a constant adjustment here to get the outer foot down without kind of creating a crescent of your inner foot. So you extend your toes back, your inner big toe extends straight back so that your ankle doesn't twist while pressing the outer foot down. You don't want the ankle to your toes to curl in towards each other. Extend your toes straight back as you press the outer toes down. Now, if you really get the ankles and the toes and all those actions to press down well, you should feel that it automatically starts to take your tailbone forward and the top of your buttock down. You can't help but do that with the toe actions. So press the inner toes back or extend them back as you press the outer toes and ankles down. Take the tailbone down with the hands on the hips. Now lift the chest up and extend through the back ribs. And see if you can get, once again, those back ribs to press forward and spread away from each other. So not just forward, but also away. And assume that you need to go a little bit higher with that action because the lower back goes forward very readily here. So see, can you move your attention up an inch? Can you get more of the upper ribs to go in and spread away as you start to extend back, even further? Take your hands back to either your heels or to a bolster. So I'm showing with my hands on my heels. If that's too much for you, you would be taking your hands back onto a bolster. Now to come out of the pose, take your hands to your hips, press your ankles down to help propel you up, lift up through your chin and your chest, and then walk your knees a little bit closer to each other once again. So now we're kind of more in the classical leg position. Now it's easier with the legs closer to get the inner ankles down and extend through the inner big toes. But now you have to work even harder to press the outer ankle down. Outer shin, outer ankle, press them down. Outside of the foot, like the pinky toe, top foot, press that down as well. Now lift the chest with your hands on your hips. Take the tailbone forward with the top buttocks going down toward the back of the knees. And lift the chest up. So you're already beginning the pose Ustrasana before going back with the arms. Now, once again, wherever you bend, wherever you feel like your back bend is taking place from, shift your consciousness up an inch and see if you can fill the top chest more from that slightly higher up area. So those ribs, the back ribs, move them forward and away from each other. Puff your chest up. Fill the top chest from the action of the ribs. Start to take the head back as you reach the arms back for the heels. If you can't make it to the heels, you should use a bolster. Press the outer knees, outer shins, outer foot down, and then finally lean the head back. Now to come out, lift the head, press the outer ankles and inner ankles down to help propel you forward. And then sit down onto your heels. We started the class in a pose similar to this. This is Vajrasana, just a resting pose for the legs for a moment. And now come on to your hands and knees. Have your fingers, your index fingers parallel. We're preparing for one last Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And actually, if you can do this, this is written in the sequence, and it is the appropriate way to do this for right now. It says hands to the wall. So that hands to the wall is going to give you more extension through your back, which is going to be very safe and good to do after the back bend. So if you can manage this quickly, bring your hands, your mat to the wall. To get your mat short side to a wall, you have your thumbs up to the wall, your index finger to the wall. So again, here the thumbs are parallel now and your index fingers point out to the corners of your mat. So your hands are kind of turned out like this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then go ahead and extend the legs. Push the baseboard away as if you were pushing it into the next room. Use that extension to extend the inner arms longer and take the thighs and the hips back. Lock the elbows, turn the arms up, press the thighs and the hips back. And bend the knees and come down. So take, let's see, how are we gonna do this here? I cannot use this wall for this, but you will use a wall. I'm gonna use this wall. You're gonna take your butt back to a wall, your feet slightly wider than hips distance apart. You lean your butt back to the wall, and your butt shouldn't go away from the wall as you go forward. In fact, it should go up the wall. So take your hands to your hips, straighten your knees, and as you go forward, slide the butt up the wall and release the head and the neck forward. If we were teaching this pose, sometimes as a standalone pose, we would tell you to keep the back flat. However, we've done a lot of back bends now, and we actually want to release the head, the neck, and the back. So the main thing that you have to be concerned of here is keeping the knees straight, and then just allow the chest and the upper body to pour down as if it was going to droop down between the legs toward the floor. Now study the contact of your butt to the wall. Does one side of the butt feel like it is on the wall more solidly? Does one side of the butt feel like it's up the wall more than the other? Because that lighter or that sort of incorrect, if you will, butt probably correlates to a tighter side of your lumbar. So press that kind of less cooperative half of the buttock, which we all have, even if it's very slightly, back into the wall and up. And that extension of the butt isn't coming from just turning your thighs and your hips, but your lumbar on that side has to elongate. The fibers between the lumbar vertebrae have to elongate. Slide the buttock up even more as you release the head downward even more. Good, and then take the hands to the hips. Inhale, come up. We're gonna do just a few chair twists. Nikki, I know your chair will work just fine for this. You're just gonna use it. It's gonna be a very large backrest. So you'll place your chair in the middle of your mat. And I'm gonna be your mirror image here. So you'll sit off to the right side with your legs going off the chair, the middle of the butt on the chair. No blanket is needed on the chair unless it's severely uncomfortable for you. So right now, wherever your backrest is, that backrest should be, you think about this, if I'm your mirror image, I hope I haven't kind of did this wrong here. So your backrest should be closer to your right thigh so that you'll turn to the right first. Now lift up through the sides of the body and turn. Take hold of the backrest. Press your left hip back as you lift up through the chest, up through the back ribs, and turn. And we're going to do these relatively quickly. They're not going to be long holds. So to come out, inhale, come back to center, spin around in your chair. Right thigh now, or rather left thigh is close to the backrest. I didn't say this on the first side. It is important though that your feet are right under your knees. Your feet are parallel, your shins are perpendicular to the floor. Ideally, your thighs are parallel to the floor as well. So if you're really tall, which some people later on might be watching this and are very tall, you might be using some blankets on the chair to get the thighs parallel to the floor. Now lift up through the sides of the chest and turn. And when you turn, the chest constantly lifts and the right hip, this right outer hip, constantly pulls back. That right hip presses back to keep the right hip anchored so that the twist comes from the vertebrae, not just from the hip shifting. Lift up, twist a little deeper. And then inhale, come back to center, and then swing your legs around to the other side. Inhale, lift up. With that lift, just quickly check, align your feet, your knees, and then exhale to turn, hold the backrest of the chair. Now I heard this in a little internet class, an Iyengar class yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. It was this idea, or this image that the twist is almost like twisting off a bottle cap. So that when you twist off a bottle cap, not only does it twist, but it also, the cap comes up. Not just that it goes around. It's not like you're screwing something in. It's that you're unscrewing something. So as much as you're turning around, seek to also lift up. Lift the chest, lift the back ribs up. Everything goes up. So as much as you twist to the right side, the body also is extending straight up. And then inhale to come back to center. And then turn around to the left for the last time. And now that you've turned to the left, extend up through the sides, feet aligned with the knees. Reach around, exhale to hold the backrest. Inhale to lift up. Exhale to turn further to the left. And so you're making this constant scan of attention. Every inhalation, you see how much more up can I get? Every exhalation, how much more twist can I get? So you're never going up at the expense of coming out of the twist, nor are you twisting and collapsing. So you're balancing both constantly through the pose. And inhale to come back to center. So we are going to do low back Shavasana to finish the class. There's basically two options for this. Low back Shavasana is its own pose, but if you don't have the right chair for this, and I think, Nikki, your chair will work fine, you'll just have to turn it kind of to the side. Low back Shavasana is also chair Shavasana, sometimes called. So I'm going to place my chair down with a blanket on my chair, just for comfort's sake, and then I'm going to have another blanket for underneath my head. Some amount of blanket is required under the head, even if it's very thin, just some padding. Even if you're on a soft carpeted floor or something like that, still use some extra height so that your neck is elongated. So for lower back Shavasana, I'm going to scoot in close to my chair, thread my legs through the chair, and then I bring my blanket in close so that my blanket supports the back of my neck and my back head, not my shoulders. And then here, I'm going to take my arms, I'm going to press my arms down. You too, everyone, press your arms down and actually lift the torso up, tuck the shoulder blades underneath you so that your inner shoulder blades press up and in away from the floor, and the outer shoulder blades press down into the floor. And you can do that 2 or 3 times, just those little steps of the shoulders. And then you feel, as you relax, that drew your lumbar a little bit away from the floor. Those adjustments with the shoulders hiked up your lumbar slightly. It's pretty common, at least I feel it often, people feel that. So hop your butt a little bit away, rest the buttock down, and now just rest. You don't have to do anything else with the shoulders. Those little adjustments have created a traction and a kind of a natural shape of the chest and shoulders where the chest is opening and broadening. But now there's no additional effort required. And your lumbar should go down towards the floor equally to the right and the left side, not because you're hardening your abdomen or forcing it down, but because you're releasing it downward. So you have to pay attention and you have to discover within your body what's going on in your back. Is neither the right or the left side going down? Is one side going down but not the other? And you can't make really hard muscular forces or adjustments to make the back go down here. It has to kind of just soften, and all you can do is really pay attention, breathe, and just over time watch and be mindful of that area, that or the whole area, or both areas, right or left side, one or the other, as the lumbar becomes heavier on the ground. In every moment, new information is presented. You may find, oh, if I release this glute or release this or that, then that also helps the buttock go down. As strange as it sounds, you might find that by releasing the tongue or the jaw or the face, that also helps the lower back go down. So these patterns of tension and these different holdings throughout the whole body, they can all be attended to. Every moment you may be presented with new information from your body, and you're constantly curious about what arises, constantly curious about how can I allow my back to become even softer and to spread further. Sometimes we find in these poses like Shavasana that certain areas are just always gripped, whether that be somewhere in the buttocks or the legs, or even something very subtle like an eyebrow or like a cheek or something like that. So if you really surrender to the floor, you may find over several moments that one of these constantly gripping or constantly coming in and out of gripping areas is presented to you. And that may become the focus of your Shavasana today, just putting attention on that area and not forcefully, but patiently watching it. And there's an attitude of watching it that's, of course, accepting, but then also inviting for a spreading and a softness that is more permanent, is more long lasting, so that this area may have some permission to release its constant gripping. And now just lightly extend the fingers and the toes. And then bring the knees in close to the chest. And turn over to the right side. Extend the arm up so that your head lands in your arm as you roll. Use your left hand and your right elbow to help bring you up. to seated. Namaste. May peace be with us all. Om Shanti.